Hello, my name is Rich Howard, owner of Architectural Builder Supply, and this video is to bring you a closer look at the Stanley number F191. This is an oil-rubbed bronze, 4.5, 4.5, full mortise, standard weight, plain bearing, brass base hinge, dark oxidized satin bronze, dark oxidized oil-rubbed bronze. And let's take a look at it. In short, this is a hinge made of brass, and that it is in an oil-rubbed bronze finish. Oil-rubbed bronze is considered a living finish, and what that kind of that's a fancy way of saying no two products are going to look identical when it comes to oil-rubbed bronze, and this finish will evolve with time. A hinge isn't going to be touched by hand, so the oil-rubbed process isn't going to wear off like you would if you had a handle. And if you've ever seen a dark handle that where in that range of height where people tend to pull the handle, where it's the oil rubbed is worn off, and it reveals the bronze or brass base material below. That's what this is. Okay, if you were to rub on that long enough, you'll wear the oil rubbed out. When people order, they say that it's US10B. If this was made of bronze, we would call it 613. And that means a non-ferrous base material, and in particular, it would mean an oil-rubbed bronze finish. When people order this, they literally, if an understanding of the definition is in place, people literally want the finish to evolve and change with time, is why people would order oil-rubbed over a solid bronze or brass base material. If you want a finish that is consistent, piece to piece, manufacturer to manufacturer, and one that will not evolve with time as oil rub would be, you do not want to order this. They will look different piece to piece. When people order these, they want that natural variation because it's a hand finish. This is oil rub bronze. That's what this looks like. You see evidence of that process behind it. This is an F191. That means it means a number of things. In no particular order, it means it's a full mortise hinge. You can see from the swag on the hinge leaves here that when those leaves are brought parallel to each other, they're meant to be mortised flush to the edge of the door and frame. It means it's a 5-knuckle hinge. You can see 5 knuckles. It means that it is a plain bearing hinge. There are no bearing packets at all between the knuckles on a standard weight hinge, which this is. This is 134 thousandths thick. That's also inferred in the part number. If it was a ball bearing hinge, you'd have bearing packets at the top and bottom knuckles between the two leaves. Standard weight, as I said earlier, 134 thousandths. The 91, or the 191, that tells us standard weight, but it also tells us a non-ferrous base material. Then when you add the finish onto it, US10B or US32D, oil-rubbed bronze or stainless steel, it will then dictate the base material based on the finish that you're going to do. So if you ordered 32D or 630 satin stainless, they know it's going to be made of stainless, is how that works. Now this hinge is a 4.5 by 4.5, and it's important to know that the height is the first dimension on the hinge. That is indeed 4.5 inch. The second dimension is also 4.5 inch, but as I said just now, it's important to know the height is the first dimension. The height is the more crucial of the two dimensions, even though they're both crucial. But the height would be the first dimension. It's the opposite way that doors are sized. Doors are sized in the width and then the height. Well, this is the opposite. It's the height first and then the width. Doesn't matter, I suppose, knowing or not knowing that when you're dealing with nothing but square hinges like a 4.5, 4.5. But if you had a 4.5 by 4, or you had a 3.5 by 6, you're going to want to know which is which on these. Height first is the bottom line. Okay. And again, oil rub bronze. Completely non-ferrous. Now, there is information down below, the extended description, for use on internal or external doors without door closers in hospital, churches, etc., etc. So what they're saying is, if you have a door with a door closer, do not use a plain bearing hinge. Use the FBB191. Okay, that's a rule. That is, you can install this on a door with a door closer. It would be certainly not best practice. A door closer really needs to have all of the possible advantage in order for it to do its job. And while Stanley, in my experience, makes really nice hinges, as a plain bearing hinge, that already works really well. You're going to want a ball bearing hinge. And if you are, the only time you would literally buy a plain bearing hinge, in my opinion, is if you had exceptionally low volume, because whether if it's today or in 30 years, there's going to be wear on those hinges on a plain bearing hinge. So I would avoid those unless they literally were very low volume use, absolutely residential at the most. And it really should be ball bearing, because ball bearing doesn't cost more, and they will last an outrageously greater amount of time. Those knuckles just wear on each other, and they will absolutely allow the door to drop, allow the hardware to not work correctly. So let's continue through the extended description now. As we move on down through our extended description, all hinges have template screw hole location for use in either wood or hollow metal doors and frames. So template, the word template refers to, the word template has a couple of different definitions. The way they're using it here is to illustrate, to define, to categorize, to qualify, to specify the precise location of these holes measured from the side of the leaf and the top of the leaf to the center of each of these preparations. If someone says the hinge is a template pattern, you can put a caliper on this and measure these, or look at the document, the technical drawing, and regardless of it being from Stanley or Hager or McKinney or Bomber or any other manufacturer of hinges, if it's a 4.5 inch tall hinge in template pattern, it will work. And that is nice because 100 years ago, if you had hinges from brand A or brand B or brand C, nothing was to say that that the hinge locations were in the same place. Well, that was good, I guess, for the manufacturer, because you would go back to them for a new hinge. But 130 years ago, 150 years ago, manufacturers of hardware made everything you needed for a home. If you were building a project, I can't speak about Stanley because I don't have any of their archival documents, but other major names from New England, you would have bought everything from them. Locks, hinges, stops, window hardware, all kinds of other hardware. And you weren't faced with having to buy doors and frames from here and locks from here and hinges from here and hope that it all worked together. So at some point, I would imagine the first quarter of the 20th century, this sort of templated pattern, or maybe mid-century, I would like to research that, a template pattern was derived, okay? Meaning, no matter who the manufacturer is, those holes are in the same place. The word template also refers to the technical drawing, or the template. So you'll say to yourself, okay, it's a template pattern, great. Where are those locations? Well, go look at the template, and that will show you where they are. Okay, so a little interesting thing about them being in a template pattern. Continuing through, 4.5 inch plain bearing, pin type removable. You could easily drive a center punch in here and tap that pin out. If for some reason you wanted to remove it, there would be no reason at all to remove it. This hinge is non-handed, could work for left-hand doors, can work for right-hand doors, doesn't matter. You wouldn't need to turn that upside down at all, okay? If you're doing a fire-rated door, don't use this hinge. 2 reasons. It's not ball bearing, that's required. It's not a non-ferrous base material. Hinges have to be non-ferrous. Oh, pardon me. It must be ball bearing, must be ferrous base material or stainless, okay? Steel or stainless, brass or bronze you can't use. I've hardly touched that hinge, hardly. You can already see the finish, and that's what people are asking for when they want oil rubbed. Mounting style square, okay, I'm not sure what that means. It's a square corner hinge, okay. They do indeed go on to list that it's a 134 thousandths leaf thickness. Standard weight is what that means. Heavy weight would be 180 thousandths on this hinge. My caliper tells me this hinge is 0.132, so that's pretty good. Non-ferrous base material, again 5 knuckle. Use anti-friction bearing hinges on high or average frequency doors, and all doors equipped with door closers. Again, a best practice rule of thumb rule is what it is. Let's switch to the screen view and take a look at the supporting documentation for this hinge. Okay, let's take a look at some of our supporting documentation here. Here's the item that we're looking at. Let's first look at what's called the tech drawing. That's here. Tech drawing. So this is a template. This is a technical drawing. This is going to serve for the following sizes of hinges, and you'll note that they're always 4.5 inch tall. Okay, for all of these. The only thing that changes really is the F dimension, whether it be narrower or longer than the standard dimension for a 4.5, 4.5. And here is, of course, your F dimension here. Some people want to know that. They want to know how long is my leaf going to be, and then they go about and calculate, what sort of leaf width that they require. There's a better way to determine that, and let's, as an aside, let's just jump to that right now. In the full line catalog, there is a definition for determining that. Okay, and it is expressed here. It is door thickness minus backset plus inset plus your clearance. I don't know if I've got that memorized. It might be door thickness minus backset multiplied by 2. I believe is what it is. Let's get to hinge formula on page 7. Yeah. Door thickness minus backset times 2 plus the clearance plus your inset. So I had that inset the wrong place. Door thickness minus the backset. A common formula is going to be 1 3/4 minus 1/4 times 2 is 3 inch. Plus your clearance, let's just say it's 1 inch. So that's 4 inch. Plus your inset, that would be 1/8 of an inch. So that's going to put us at 4 1/8. So in that sort of scenario, a 4.5 inch would be appropriate. But if your clearance was like 3/4 inch or 1/2 inch, which would be, well, probably wouldn't be quite a 1/2 inch. But let's just say that it was, something in that 3/4 inch range. 1.5 inches times 2 plus your clearance, 3 inch plus, 3/4, 3 3/4 plus 1/8 of an inch. That would really put you in a much better position to use the 4.5 by 4. The 4.5 by 4 is best practice in installations when you have typical installations when you have no need for that barrel to hang off any further from the face of the jamb. The 4.5, 4.5 is the de facto standard. However, that doesn't mean it's the de facto correct item to use. And here's what I mean. Let's say that you have a wall. Two studs at the end. You have a typical drywall, knockdown drywall compression frame here. Okay, so in this event, a 4-inch hinge would be far more appropriate to use than 4.5, 4.5 because you literally have no clearance problem here. People are going to use 4.5, 4.5. The issue with that is it's not right. It's not best practice. To keep that hinge barrel just that 1/4 inch towards the face of the jamb is considered best practice and would be the appropriate way to go. Now, in another installation where that wide throw hinge formula is going to come into play, here we are. We have a 14-inch masonry frame, okay? 14-inch masonry wall, and someone's going to take an 8 3/4 frame and get that installed there. Run some lag bolts in there, things of that nature, whatever the case might be. So in this scenario, that's where that formula comes into play. What do you want the door to do? Do you want it to go to 180 degree? Well, you sure better get out and calculate that then. That would be the way to go. Door thickness minus backset times 2, plus your clearance. And the clearance is when the door is shown just as an exaggerated view. Now the door is shown here open to 180 degree. What kind of clearance do you require? Okay, so that's what you'll have to calculate. Plus your inset, and that inset could be 3/32, it could be 3 inch. Who knows? Who knows what it is? You could see a very big wood frame with applied stop. This could be 16 inch overall. Okay, and your door could set here. You might need a wide throw hinge just because that inset dimension is 2 inch. Okay, so be mindful of that as well. You can't have that barrel sticking in here unless, of course, you were looking at a raised barrel style hinge where the leaf of the hinge scoots out like this and takes that vertical axis of pivoting away from the face of the jamb. Okay. Raised barrel. Anyway, get back on track here. So this template is handy, gives you the F dimension. We'll also speak to all of these other hinge model numbers. We're dealing with the F191. Okay. Its sister product, the FBB 191. The heavyweight version, they won't make a plain bearing heavyweight. That would be an FBB 199. Non-ferrous base material, heavyweight, which would be 180 thousandths thick on a 4.5 inch hinge. But all these other model numbers of hinges, which we won't go into here. Okay, there we go. Also on our supporting documents, installation template. Okay, I have never seen this before. National is a sister company to Stanley or owned by Stanley. There is some relationship there I'm not aware of. I don't know why this document is here. It doesn't hurt to have it there, but you can review that. Hinge size, I'm not sure what that means. More national information. We're going to leave that there. It doesn't hurt to have it there, although it's not germane. I'm not sure what these part numbers equate to when it comes to Stanley part numbers. There's some sort of a confluence of, you know, product lines, consolidation, etc., dealing with them. So that wraps up the document portion of this. Let's click on the manufacturer's page, and there are a lot of supporting documents here. Reference documents, encyclopedic documents, probably a lot of information that doesn't apply to what you're doing, but you're looking for this 2010 catalog works for me in most instances because all I want to do is see hinges. Stanley's been making hinges since the 19th century, probably mid-19th century. And I don't need to see other things. However, Stanley also gets into sliding and folding door stuff. And this is kind of where National comes into play because National had some sliding material as well. So if you are looking for sliding bypass bifold pocket, that would be a good catalog to get into. Okay, obviously their website is here, and just simply stated, other encyclopedic documents are all listed here for your review. Let's finish up this video on camera. Now, a very common question that we get, sold as each. Priced per hinge, sold per hinge. They're not sold in a box of 3 or a case of 100. It's a reasonable question that people ask because it's a box of 3. That's how they are sold. I should say that's how they're shipped. But if you have a 8-foot door, you're not forced to purchase, you know, 2 boxes of 3. They're sold as each. Stanley will include shims. That's what these pieces of cardboard are for. Do not use cardboard shims if you are shimming a fire-rated door, but you wouldn't be using these on a fire-rated door because they're not ferrous-based or stainless. Screws are going to be included in a complementary finish. This is all wood screws and all machine screws, 8 of each, so you don't have to stress about that. However, speaking of best practice, it would be absolutely best practice that you define what you would like the factory to send you. Half wood screws, half machine screws, all wood screws. Not all manufacturers ship all screws in the package. Okay, so this hinge made by Stanley is a very high quality hinge. I'm a fan of Stanley. I find their fit and finish right out of the box is exceptional. I find that their operation is very smooth 100% of the time. I also like the Stanley product because their logo is petite. I don't want corporate advertising on my hardware. And they keep a nice petite logo, and I think that's elegant. That link below this video will help you determine the other pieces and parts that you might bump into that you require in terms of catalog resources. And if you have any questions on the Stanley F191, 4.5, 4.5, 10B finish, or any other Stanley product, please feel free to reach out to us. And thank you.